You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Each year, millions of patients are treated with levothyroxine to manage hyperthyroidism, but not all levothyroxine medications are created equal. On today's Pharmacy Podcast Network episode, we're discussing the management of hypothyroidism and why the answer for some patients who may have trouble tolerating traditional tablets could lie in the dosage form. Sonja O'Bryan is not affiliated with Yaral Pharma. All of the views and opinions stated are hers solely and are not attributed to Yaral Pharma.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network's Yaral Pharma podcast series. This is our second series together. And I have back in the studio with me the CEO of Yaral Pharma, Steve Beckman. Welcome to the show again, Stephen. It's so good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm liking this so much, I'm going to have to change careers and maybe become a podcaster. So it's a pleasure to be here, Todd.
Don't do it. Don't do it. We have a special guest with us, Dr. Sonja O'Bryan, who I met through a special friend from Alps Pharmacy and the consultancy that you do, your world of holistic medicine, as well as understanding nutraceuticals and the world of our hormones. Sonja, we're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
All right. So we're going to be touching on some of the innovative technologies that Yaral has, that Pharmacy Podcast Network has been talking about for quite some time now, about 6 to 9 months of content that we've been really focusing on and giving an opportunity for our pharmacists to learn more about some of the options around thyroid treatment, around many of the aspects that are impacting. I'm thinking of seniors, Stephen, because our senior population, we haven't even gotten to the top of the hill yet about what's happening to our population. 330 million Americans right now. And my parents, for example, in their mid to late 70s, I'm going to be part of that. I'm 52. So in 20 years, I'll be where they're at. And we're going to need a lot more pharmacists really digging down into pain management and hypertension and diabetes and weight management. And a lot of that plugs into some of what we're talking about today. So kind of give our listeners a summary of what we're going to be getting into.
Well, I think you're right. I think obviously we all know that the population's aging. And those numbers are going to go up. So, issues around hyperthyroidism and other things are going to grow and they're going to be more challenging. So having solutions, and it's interesting, if we go back to the podcasts that we've had in the past, Todd, about pain management, one of the things with the experts we had with the pain guy was he talked that one of the most important things about pain and managing pain is having options.
Yep.
So, when we think of something like a product for hypothyroidism, I think that's kind of the same parallel path. We've been traditionally using the same things for a long period of time. And for those that it works really well, that's great. And for those that it doesn't work as well, that's not so great, right? Especially when you're talking about a chronic condition and things like that. So I think what we're always doing, what's really the basis of Ipsa-CH, our parent company, and our sister company, Ipsa USA and Yaral, is we're really focused on trying to take products and making them better. And what that really means is that we're making tweaks to the things, to some of these products that might not traditionally fit everybody that's in that patient population, because there are subpopulations. And I think what's critical in the case of hyperthyroidism is that levothyroxine is the mainstay, and then the different products that are available for that to treat it. But there are been a history of tolerability, and we have a product that addresses that. So in that case, there's a patient population that might have a potentially better outcome, or at least an option to consider other things to use that might be better for their particular circumstances. And back to your original question, if that population is growing, then there's going to be more people that are going to be required or demanding, something that's going to work better for them. And at the bottom line, if you have a chronic product or a chronic disease, if you don't take it, you're not going to get the outcome. And then the spillover effect is obviously those patients don't do as well. And there's other things that can happen with those and the cross comorbidities and other things like that. So the point is, we're trying to create products and understand that all these populations all have subpopulations within it. And if we can create solutions and opportunities that will fit them, then we're going to have better outcome.
And Sonja, these solutions are being created for the quarterback, our physicians, and then passing that treatment ball. It's football season, so I can't help it. Passing it to you, the pharmacist, to drive that treatment. Talk to our listeners, open up and tell us a little bit about your background, Sonja, and how you've helped people with hormones, as well as the natural side, the blend between pharmacology and the natural side of health.
Sure. I'm privileged to work in the area of both, pharmaceuticals, but also the natural side. And so on any given day, I have patients coming my way wanting to know more about their hormones, how those hormones are processing in their bodies, the things that are involved in how hormones work. And when we talk about hormones, that's a pretty broad word, in that you're going to find your estrogens, your progesterone, your testosterone, but also, thyroid is really a hormone too. And so, making that system work well for patients, they'll say sometimes, I just don't feel quite right. And what can I do to sort of get to the bottom of this? Totally respect physicians where they're at. I have physicians that actually refer patients over for this niche of care that I provide, but I customize therapies for patients on the day-to-day, literally putting, compounded medications together for them. I often will go the route of integrative supplements to help them. We're there. I mean, this younger generation, they like that, especially. I do too, though. I love taking certain things to help my body be optimized. So that's the day-to-day for me, and I'm a front-facing pharmacist in the midst of all of that, just knowing medications, knowing how certain things interact, the challenges for patients, and working both sides of all of that to help them.
I like how you gave us a lead in to really the effective management of hypothyroidism and why that's so important. So that's kind of what I'm going to kick off to you right out of the gate, Sonja. Why is it important to really understand the management of hypothyroidism?
Right. So, I say that patients' symptoms can be deceiving sometimes, and working with their physician to know, is it a hormone issue? Is it stress and adrenals? Is it the thyroid? Symptoms can mimic when we talk about these things. And so, I often will get lab work on patients. I'm working with that physician for that patient and just working to optimize the thyroid in addition to the hormone levels and everything else. So, the fatigue, the weight gain, the hair loss, some of these things that patients are struggling with can look very much like just, hormones too. So getting to the root cause, I think, is where I serve in my role.
Todd, can I say something? Because I think what's interesting about what Sonja is saying is that, simplicity. When I was in business school, one of my teachers always said to me that sometimes less is more. And, sometimes we don't always follow that, but I think that can be applied to anything in life or business or, treating patients. And I guess what I was hearing, and Sonja can correct me if I heard it differently, or wrong. But the point is that I think that's one of the benefits of like the product that we have in terms of levothyroxine capsules, because we only have 4 ingredients. It's simple, it's clean. And, when you're talking that we only have levothyroxine, we have levothyroxine, gelatin, glycerin, and water. We're making it simple. And when you're working with the body and all the dynamics of the body, you probably don't want anything else than you need to. That's always a rule of thumb. So I think that's one of the things that makes it simple for us, is that's what we want to do. And then from a tolerability standpoint, tolerability is usually because there's multiple factors and things, and you're working with multiple medications and things like that. So again, something that has a very clean profile on the drug profile should make it a good opportunity for those patients that have tolerability. So simple is good, I guess is what I'm hearing.
Well, is good.
And then the combination of the natural side of things that you're discovering, Sonja, really is a huge interest. Matter of fact, before we started recording, Stephen and I were both saying, hey, we're at a different age than, it's strange to say it, but we're the age that I remember my dad being. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's weird to finally wake up one day and I'm 50 and we have to make some decisions about our own life. I'm starting weight training again. I'm starting to pay attention to what I'm eating. And when I think of people that are suffering with specific conditions that their pharmacist could dial in, and that's exactly what you said, Sonja, was dialing in. It makes me think maintaining a component of this whole thing is maintaining consistent T4 levels that are important for patients with hypothyroidism. And I kind of wanted to kick that to you, Sonja, and get kind of your feedback with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that steady state level of medications is where the magic is. It's the same with hormones, and patients having fluctuations up and down, and not getting that right can have an impact on them with fatigue, with sweats, with heart rate, or whatever the case may be, and so. Multiple medications, looking at that, what are they on? Are there things in these products that we need to drill down on? I mean, we're seeing an uptick even in alpha-gal right now, and we have to consider things like that with the GI tolerability and things like that. So, we have to look at steady state, how they're taking it, when they're taking it, when to avoid food, how long to avoid food before taking it. These are all important for the patient to know. And I think pharmacists are very critical because we're there counseling that patient. As I said, front facing, getting that information across that counter to them.
Todd, what's great to hear is the word is essential to maintain levels. Because one of the things when we look at this product in particular, is how important it is to maintain the steady T level is essential to thyroid management. And, that's one of the things in our Pearl technology that we use for our caps development, our products, is it allows us to ensure reliable bioavailability. And that really supports that consistent therapeutic effect. And so for us, in this hormones and thyroid, everything, steady state is really what you must maintain. If you're not steady state, that's when you get off balance, obviously. So I think that's one of the things that when you look behind the product, outside the fact its form factor is just different than tablets, and we can really address the potential of tolerability for patients that struggle with that, is that we have a product that we also know will help ensure through its consistent bioavailability, a steady state. And so hopefully that's another benefit ultimately in terms of a patient getting the right outcome.
I think of that relationship going back to what we were saying, Sonja, about that. You get this initial prescription, you get kind of like the treatment plan, you're going down the road as a patient, something happens where it's just not working. I reach out to a specialist that understands it. I reach out to you, Sonja, to start asking my questions. So explain to us some of the common challenges that are faced by patients taking a levothyroxine tablet to treat hypothyroidism.
Yeah, so the time of day to take it, it's best taken on an empty stomach. You have to wait for a certain amount of time before you eat. What if there's a challenge with that? A person that, wakes up and, it could be a blood sugar management. They've got things going on there with blood sugar. And so that can be a factor. Availability of the prescription, this is covered, this is not covered, this just access to certain medications. Osteoporosis, I'm on calcium. for my osteoporosis, well, that's a medication that we want to separate from thyroid medication. So just, good counseling, looking at each and every person. What are their conditions? What are their medications? What are their lifestyle needs to help manage this? And then, follow up with their doctor to get those lab levels to see if they're having, good success with steady state.
So I think of follow-up and how many people you've gotten contact with, Stephen, who you might have been at a conference or you might have talked to somebody, you might have heard somebody do a panel discussion. Are there other things that you've heard come up in the treatment that has been injected to the ideas to really help hone in on treatment for a specific patient?
Nothing probably per se specifically, but I think the most important thing to what Sonja said is that, at the pharmacist level or physician level, it's really managing the patient individually. And, sometimes we get in the position where we kind of do SWOT broths of this is how we should treat a asthma patient or this is how we should treat this patient. But I think to your point about us getting old, and it's just admit it, we're old now,
Yeah.
Or older. Is that we do have comorbidities. We have different dynamics in terms of it. I might have a high sugar level. Maybe somebody's pre-diabetic versus not. And I think ultimately what we have to do is we have to give the pharmacists and the physicians the ability to really do what Sonja said, which is to treat people on an individual basis. And I think that we're all trying to ensure that we get the best outcome for the patient. And we have to deal with compliance challenges and comorbidity, as I said, and other things. So the message is that you also have to give them the tools, right?
Yes.
And those tools come in the form of many different ways. And I think that's what, the simple premise of something like Tierson Caps provides is that it's a tool, it's an option. It's something that can be considered appropriate by the appropriate people. I would never suggest myself making a suggestion to a patient because I am not a pharmacist. I am not a doctor. But our goal is to give the information in order for Sonja and the physicians who work with to say, hey, we have this patient, this condition, situation. Are there other alternatives we need to look at in its holistic nature? And, ultimately, to what Sonja was saying is that I think the younger generations that are coming up is that there always has been, but maybe we're going through a cycle, which I think is appropriate, where we're looking at traditional medicine, non-traditional medicine, other things that we do both for our physical and mental health. And that's it. At the bottom of the idea is the data supports that this is a good product in levothyroxine as a whole, as a treatment category. And now you have the different tools within that box to say what's best for the patient. So not to per se there's something new and novel. I think it's just a matter of doing it right and getting back to what we really need to do. And that is to, treat people at an individual level and get them the right resources that ensures a successful outcome again. I love that word outcome, but that's what we do every day.
That's right.
Let's try to improve the outcome.
Striving for outcomes. I want to shift it back to you, Sonja, and ask about dosage form and how that could be an important factor to consider when your physician is prescribing levothyroxine and what the patient has to pay attention to, and then the guidance that you provide as a pharmacist.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, levothyroxine comes in many strengths, and typically you'll see them start low and work up. They need to be paying attention to that when they start. If I have a preference between just taking a capsule or a tablet, I will pick a capsule every time just to be able to swallow it easier. I think some patients just do better with that alone. These tablets get stuck in my throat or whatever the case may be. I hear that from time to time. I love when we can use less is more. I think is where we were talking when we first started, but the fewer ingredients for me, the better. Give me the thing I need and just only the essentials that are needed to make that work. And I love having fewer ingredients. There can be some allergies, as I said, all of these things that people add, the dyes and the fillers and these things that we find sometimes in these tablets. I've had to pull package inserts many times over the years and just really look closely at those ingredients. So,
well, I actually want to get on a plane and fly out and shake her hand, Sonja, because you made a couple comments.
come on.
That are important. One is just a little bit of history taught. So actually, soft capsules were actually invented back in the 1930s, and basically they were invented to hide tasting of a smell or taste to the medicine and so forth. So, I mean, there's a good reason to do that. So I love the fact that Sonja believes that that's important. Look, tablets are tablets, but there are some benefits of capsules, and she highlighted on a key one. So that's really important, and simple is simple, and I think that's another thing we like to do. So it's like everything I wanted to share today. She's teed it up great. Thank you for that, and a little history lesson. But I would have some of my team that came up with that background data that I put in my head.
Yeah, I think of the increasing needs of seniors, the fact that our senior population is living longer because we have more access to good medications, better therapies. Our pharmacists are now starting to step outside of the bench, and they're starting to think, how can we help people live better lives longer? And then dialing into their specifics. Sonja, there are sports-oriented seniors now. There are competitive seniors now with triathlons, and there's seniors that are extending their life 20, 30, 40 years because of the way that they're living. Have you seen an increase in thyroid issues? Are you seeing any trends at all in the Midwest? And share with our listeners a little bit about that as well.
I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing custom therapies for patients, 25 years working. I was doing hormones and custom medicine when people hardly even knew about it. But something I've noticed over the years is, significant disease, something major happens to a person, there can be some thyroid issues that happen with that. Hysterectomies. It seems like there can be some connections there. Just in talking with patients, like it's not optimized like it was when those ovaries aren't talking to the thyroid and so forth. That's something else I've seen. And just I think the high stress that people are living under these days, and the inflammation that we're surrounded by every second of the day. I think these things are playing into the disease processes and how we need to manage people to try to help those things too.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, the fact is that we live in a very different world, right? There are more stresses in the world and things like that. And that will play different impact on your body. I think the other thing that I forgot to mention too is that, we put a tremendous amount of pressure on our pharmacists and our physicians. Our physicians have staff and they can always have support, but a lot of times pharmacists are working alone, and especially if they're not in a big pharmacy and they're treating people. And one of the things Sonja said is that sometimes I have to go back and understand the PIs associated with drugs, and these drugs can be very complicated. Part of what we should be doing is helping our pharmacists not have that heavy lift, to be able to be confident they know a product pretty well, because it is, something that is easy to understand from a standpoint of how dynamic the drug is. So, a simple drug in terms of its makeup gives, I would think, some confidence to you as a pharmacist too. So, okay, we all have big burdens, and it's not just the patients and what they're changing, but it's how the pharmacists and physicians and all healthcare providers have to deal with. So it's our job to try to make it simple is better, so that we can actually be more effective. So maybe that's our new motto: is simple is better.
Simple is better.
For how we interact between our providers, our patients, and the suppliers of medicines and others to make it easier for patients to ultimately comprehend and be compliant to what they're doing in order to see those 30, 40 years. And that's why Todd and I are, after the show today, we'll talk more about in our advanced age, what we're going to do to see those 30 or 40 years. But
That's right. Patients that you're helping with maybe thyroid issues or hormone issues, Sonja, talk to us about other things that could come into play. We're talking about their diets. We're talking about some of their exercise. Pharmacists are becoming an extension of not just a pharmacist or medication management, because that in itself is enough, but you're also becoming health coaches. You're also giving kind of advice to their sensitivities around sugars or dyes or alcohol or something that might be an extra thing that's impacting someone else versus me or Stephen or yourself. So talk to us about that facet of patient management and treatment management.
I think, going back to you talking about your parents, I think my parents had just a slower pace to life. I think our schedules are very busy. It's the lights, the action, the drive-throughs, all, schedules and all of the things that we're trying to manage, in addition to our jobs and our home life and this sort of thing. More anxiety, more depression. People are not sleeping very well. When I work with a patient, if there's one thing on the list that they're sharing to me and it's sleep, that's going to be my primary target, is to try to help them get more restful sleep, because that is the reset to our body. And so those things, we can see it in prescriptions, pain management and anxiety and depression. They're just on the rise as people try to cope with life and the demands of life. So that's important. Lifestyle medicine, are you exercising? And I tell patients, okay, let's keep it simple. Can you give me a plan exactly? And I'm like, just keep it simple. I just want you to walk 30 minutes a day, 5 to 6 days a week. You don't need to be training for a marathon, but get out. I like you to touch the ground, take your shoes off, touch the ground, and just enjoy it like you did when you were a kid. Walk on the beach. These sorts of things are important. Eating well. We have access. I could be at a drive-through in 2 minutes from my office here. And that's not great, if that's the only place that you're visiting every day. So good food is important to our bodies. Good food actually helps how hormones metabolize in our bodies. Food is medicine, just like Hippocrates said about it. So those would be things that I would mention.
You see that tying into any gastrointestinal issues or anything where absorption becomes an issue, Sonja?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In one of the tests I provide, we can actually look at a gut marker. It's important for the gut to be healthy so that we can absorb things appropriately. And I think our foods, are not the same as they used to be with some of the things that are being used in our foods.
And that's good to hear, because obviously with Levos, the caps, we maintain a consistent absorption, even in altered states within the gut. So again, you have to look at it holistically. So if you're trying to get an outcome in a certain thing, and we all know that medicines can have, that's why we have side effects and AEs, and we have to maintain and with the government and the regulatory authorities, always about the quality of safety first, efficacy second in products. So the point is that, that can be very variable, and we need to make sure that we can minimize that. So again, the patients will actually take it. So obviously we have data that supports that in terms of our ability to be absorbed correctly and consistently, given the formulation that we have. And, that's again, for those patients. Again, we're trying to really focus on those patients that are not where we want them to be. And that's a tough chore, because as you just said, when I look at a patient, I'm going to get multiple things. I might start with sleep because that's the most critical in your eye from a reset, which I couldn't argue. Makes a lot of sense to me, because I would like to sleep a little bit better myself. But that's where all the factors come in. But, down on level 2 or 3 or 4, something might be having impact on priority number 1. A product that you can't tolerate very well or something else would be an example of that.
Love it. I love the collaboration between business development, getting obstacles out of the way for payment, in where pharmacists are struggling. That's the side of I've been in pharmacy now 22 years, and that is the side of this business that's the most frustrating for me, is where pharmacists desperately want to help their patient and they can't get something paid for because of some PBM issue or something. And Sonja, I'm sure you get frustrated about that in managing a specific disease state for a patient.
Very frustrating.
All right.
Well, if we could fix that one, then we'd fix the world. But
It's all happening right now. Actually, the churn and the plate tectonics of our industry are moving finally, and we're seeing some better outcomes. But Sonja, this has been a thrill for us to be able to dial into somebody who really understands what some of our patients, what some of our people are going through. And I think sensitivity comes in when we get older and you're seeing so many changes. Patients are reaching out to you for other things that aren't necessarily pharmacological. They're about their metabolism and about their diet and about just living better. So thank you for being such a great resource today.
Oh, my pleasure. Happy to help.
And Stephen, it's always good seeing you here in the Pharmacy Podcast Network studios in our hometown, Brownsville, Pennsylvania. I'm proud of this. Sonja, we were just sharing before we were recording that we had a bunch of high schoolers come into the studio to do a podcast about a play that they're working on within our community. So,
oh, fun. Well, I live in Branson, so it's live entertainment everywhere in our city. I love those sorts of things. Love those live shows.
Amen. And our youth being involved in theater and things like that has to be continued to be supported. So it's good to say. And ironically, it's great that Todd and I live in the same area of a very small town in Western Pennsylvania. And who would know? Who would ever thought that the two would cross, that pharmaceutical CEO and the head of a very exciting, dynamic podcast platform for pharmacy.
And we met in San Diego.
And we met in San Diego. But, Todd, we shouldn't understate the fact of what you're doing for pharmacists and your platform and what you've built. I submit I've been doing this for over 30 years on the manufacturing side, and I have great respect and value for physicians and nurses and pharmacists. But I do have a soft spot for pharmacists because, it's a tough world for them. And just the demands on the amount of medications they're filling, the responsibility, the huge responsibility have of treating patients. And most pharmacists never get the credit that they do. They're either primary or a supplement to the physician. And they're a lot more than filling a prescription. And we do need to continue to find ways to support them. And we hope that's one of the things that makes Yaral a little different. A lot of generic companies, they don't take the time or invest in supporting, because, traditionally generic companies, we supply products to the wholesalers and products sell as they sell. But, we have a responsibility to be out there and supporting the people. And the pharmacists are top on our list. So we're happy to continue to work on these type of podcasts and continue to raise issues and challenges. And we have to be respectful to all the pieces. It's about helping the patient. It's about making sure a pharmacist has time to spend with the patient. It's similar to that as a doctor. The doctor wants more time too. We want to be able to allow them to do that and still be able to be, and I know this sounds as an ugly word sometimes, but they have to be profitable. Mm-hmm. They can't be profitable. They can't continue to serve their patients as a pharmacist, as a manufacturer, as a physician. So we've got to find that good place where the patient is served first and foremost, and all we can do that. So we will always listen, and through relationships with you, Todd, and others, through Sonja, we hope that we will listen first and foremost, and we will listen and we will learn. And as a supplier of medication, we will take that insight to match up. If we're talking about we have to do individual medicine to patients, then it's our job to make sure that we're looking very closely at our drug portfolio, at what we're doing as a company, how that matches up to the different needs within the healthcare system and supply. So ultimately, we get that good outcome. I just want to say outcome one more time.
Wow, time. Sonja, we're headed to Columbus, Ohio for the National Community Pharmacists Association's annual meeting in October. Do you ever make any of the national conferences at all?
I typically just do the niche that I'm in, the customized medicine, the endocrinology stuff.
We are preparing for the NCPA. Yaral Pharma will have a presence there. A shout out to our listeners. If you'd like to meet up with Yaral, we can arrange those meetings for you and really digging down into supporting you. If it's a pain management focus that you're on, if it's the thyroid that you're focused on, let us help support you. This is not only from a product perspective, but even a marketing perspective to really open up those additional channels for you. So a shout out to everyone attending the NCPA.
Yeah. I guess we can conclude, Todd, by saying, first of all, we do want to listen. And I said that a moment ago, but we are only going to get better as an organization servicing our patients and customers if we listen. So that's why we do things like attending the NCPA. Also, we have our website, which is yaralpharma.com. We're always where a lot of information is, and most importantly, all our full prescribing information, including our box warning on levothyroxine capsules or sodium capsules. So most importantly is that we want to exchange the level of information and knowledge, and then hopefully the right patient will get the right product with the right support.
Absolutely. Dr. Sonja O'Bryan, thank you for being our special guest today, and a shout out to our pharmacists and technicians who are listening to the Pharmacy Podcast. Please subscribe on any of your favorite podcast players. And once again, take a look at Yaral. That's YARAL Pharma.com. And we'll see you at the NCPA.
Thank you so much.
Levothyroxine sodium capsules are L-thyroxine T4 indicated for use in adults and pediatric patients 6 years and older with hypothyroidism. Levothyroxine sodium capsules can also be used for pituitary thyrotrophin suppression. Thyroid hormones, including levothyroxine sodium capsules, should not be used for the treatment of obesity or for weight loss. Doses beyond the range of daily hormonal requirements may produce serious or even life-threatening manifestations of toxicity. Levothyroxine sodium capsules are not indicated for suppression of benign thyroid nodules and non-toxic diffuse goiter in iodine-sufficient patients, or for the treatment of transient hypothyroidism during the recovery phase of subacute thyroiditis. Levothyroxine sodium capsules are contraindicated in patients with uncorrected adrenal insufficiency. For elderly patients and those with underlying cardiovascular conditions, starting with a lower dose is recommended due to the heightened risk of cardiac adverse reactions, including atrial fibrillation. Oral thyroid hormone drugs should not be used to treat myxedema coma, and replacement glucocorticoids are necessary for patients with concomitant adrenal insufficiency before initiating levothyroxine sodium capsules. To prevent hyperthyroidism or for the incomplete treatment of hypothyroidism, proper dose titration and careful monitoring are essential. Diabetic patients should carefully monitor glycemic control after starting, changing, or discontinuing thyroid hormone therapy, since glycemic control may worsen in diabetic patients. Decreased bone mineral density associated with thyroid hormone over-replacement may occur. Adverse reactions associated with levothyroxine sodium capsules primarily reflect symptoms of hyperthyroidism due to overdosage, including arrhythmias, heart attack, dyspnea, muscle spasm, headache, nervousness, irritability, insomnia, tremors, muscle weakness, increased appetite, weight loss, diarrhea, heat intolerance, menstrual irregularities, and skin rash. Patients should ask their doctor if levothyroxine sodium capsules are right for them. For more information and full prescribing information, including boxed warning and important safety information, visit www.yaralpharma.com.